Comrades, do you know that our respected supreme leader once won the Sexiest Man Alive award? No, this is not a fever dream, nor a domestic propaganda. In 2012, the American media, The Onion, jokingly awarded Kim that title. Our leader was praised for his devastatingly handsome, round face, his boyish charm, and that unique ability to look like both a pampered princeling and a man who could have you disappeared before lunch. Then, China's People's Daily Online, a state-affiliated news agency, took the satire at face value and ran it for real, complete with a massive photo slideshow celebrating the victory. Just like that, one of the world's most repressive dictators was briefly treated like he had won a People magazine contest of handsomeness. Before you laugh, let's think about it. The award honestly made a kind of sense. North Korea has never merely ruled through laws, propaganda, and punishment. One of the most useful instruments to rule is the leader's image. The regime does not simply produce leaders, but curates them, putting them under the spotlight and turning them into larger-than-life political icons. The supreme leader was groomed to be the sexiest man on earth through careful portraiture, disciplined haircutting, strategic overcoating, and the sort of camera tricks usually reserved for K-pop stars. The Kingdom is a country where political legitimacy is inseparable from visual presentation. Kim Il-sung had a benevolent revolutionary smile. Kim Jong-il invented the pair of battle suits and ladies' sunglasses, looking like a Cold War Bond villain who got lost on the way to a factory inspection. Kim Jong-un, meanwhile, has gone for something bolder. Part grandfather cosplay, part modern strongman, part fashion icon with access to nuclear heads. All of these lead to a very serious question. A question that North Korean watchers have somehow neglected for decades. Who is the most handsome comrade in North Korean leadership history? That's right, not the best ruler, which would be a separate episode. This episode only concerns the outlook, and we will do what the North Korean system itself loves most: create a rigid ranking structure and pretend it is objective. 8 respected Workers' Party comrades, past and present, will be judged across 5 categories, which are face, hair, outfit, camera charisma, and vibe. 10 points each and 50 points total. Again, before the show, a brief tribute to the distinguished handsome comrades who financially support this channel. Thanks to these selfless patrons of scholarship for enabling us to continue asking the important questions history was too cowardly to ask. We really appreciate it. Now, what are we waiting for? Let the judging begin.
North Korea has reappointed Kim Jong-un as chairman of the State Affairs Commission in a leadership reshuffle that indicates tighter regime control. The North State media said Monday that the Supreme People's Assembly, the regime's rubber-stamp parliament, held the first meeting of its 15th term on Sunday. Kim was once again elevated to the top state post, while one of his closest aides, Cho Yong-won, replaced Choi Ryong-ae as president of the Presidium of the Supreme People's Assembly.
First up is Kim Tok Hun. We must leave the final boss at last, right? So, the judgment starts with those important bureaucrats. Kim Tok Hun is one of North Korea's most important economic officials. He came up through the heavy industry system, first starting his career as a floor manager, and then rising to manage the Taean heavy machinery complex. From there, he climbed steadily. Provincial leadership in Jagang, vice premiership in 2014, Central Committee membership in 2016, Politburo promotion in 2019, and then the big jump in August 2020, when Kim Jong-un appointed him premier, effectively putting him in charge of the cabinet during a period of sanctions and economic stress. In late 2024, he was moved to become Workers' Party Secretary for Economic Affairs and Director of the party's Economic Affairs Department, and in March 2026, he was appointed First Vice Premier, a newly created post that seems to underline his continued importance in economic management. Though he shares the same sacred surname as the supreme leader, Kim Tok Hun's power does not come from bloodline and mythology. He is a technocrat, a handy production manager. The regime uses him as the sort of official you wheel out when the state needs to speed up fertilizer or steel production. I will give him a 6 out of 10 for his face. Pretty average. He is definitely not a poster boy, but to be fair, he is memorable due to his squarish head. His eyes are slightly hooded and always a little tired looking, which gives him that overworked senior cadre expression. The eyebrows are straight and restrained, not very dramatic. His nose is medium-sized and balanced. Overall, it is not a flashy or especially striking face. It is a composed, respectable, work-worn face. The hairstyle, 7. I know it is not iconic, but it is clean and disciplined. His hairline looks solid, and the density is good. Those 2 points can easily make other middle-aged comrades jealous. The short sides and neatly shaped top give his head a firm, square outline, which suits his face well. It makes him look organized, composed, and a little sharper than anyone else. Outfit, I can only give a 5. He dresses correctly, not memorably. Yes, his suits are carefully tailored, but every big cadre has their bespoke suits. Nothing is offensive means nothing is exciting. Camera charisma, 7 out of 10. Kim Tok Hun has a particular institutional charisma. In photos, he usually keeps a controlled, closed-mouth expression, with upright body posture and a steady gaze that makes him look calm and confident. When speaking at formal events, he looks credible and self-possessed. When standing near Kim Jong-un in group shots, he does not vanish into the wallpaper, which is already an achievement. He looks civilized and trustworthy, so 7 is a fair score. His strongest asset is probably the overall vibe. Kim Tok Hun has the look of a man who has spent years carrying industrial targets and attending cabinet meetings. His lean physique gives off hard-working technocrat energy. He's the competent economic steward who arrives early and leaves late. In photos around Kim Jong-un, his proximity suggests trust. In podium shots, he projects seriousness without looking theatrical. He has a really good vibe, dry, stable, and oddly respectable. Let's give him an 8. That gives Kim Tok Hun a total of 33 out of 50. That is actually a very respectable opening score. He does not belong to the Pek-tu lineage tier, but clearly above average. Comrade Kim is a diligent, lean, reasonably camera-friendly bureaucrat whose greatest beauty asset is that he looks like he has done some actual work. So, B tier. Next comes Pak Pong Ju. Born in 1939, Comrade Pak is a revolutionary grandpa whose road to fame was long and unglamorous. He was another Workers' Party handyman who worked in factory management, the chemical industry, party economic planning, then the chemical industry minister, and finally the premier of the DPRK in 2003. He got pushed out in 2007 and reinstated as the premier again in 2013, before his final dismissal in 2019. For a substantial period, he sat at the very top of the party hierarchy. Comrade Park is a friend of Uncle Jang Sung-tek, and for years he was regarded as one of the reform-minded economic managers. During his premiership, the DPRK economy was, frankly speaking, pretty bad, but at least he survived all the purges. His resume gives him a different kind of attractiveness, the look of a man who spent decades navigating the command economy, got blamed, came back, and still managed to look like a perfect scapegoat for systematic failures. Considering he is a very old man, we will judge his outlook during his prime time. He looked notably better in his earlier years, when he was slimmer, more alert, and more structurally put together. Younger Pak had a leaner, cleaner face than the later grandfather version. The jawline is respectable, the features are balanced. He had that typical East Asian senior official look, where intelligence and fatigue combine into something unexpectedly dignified. His eyebrows are surprisingly thick and make him look ultra-loyal. He was quietly handsome and fitted the image of a reform bureaucrat. So, 7 for the face. His hairstyle is average. Let's go for a 5. During his prime, Pak's hair is neat and frames his face decently. However, the hairline keeps receding year by year, making him half bald by the end of his career. His hair is neither dense nor of good quality, just bureaucratically acceptable. It is not as bad as Uncle Jang's, though. Next, outfit. Pak wears the standard uniform of a senior North Korean official. Dark suit, dark tie, careful fit, nothing too loose, nothing too bold, and absolutely no visible rebellion against the state. He does look good when dressed in lighter colors, but otherwise, his outfit is mediocre. 5. Pak Pong Ju has the camera presence of a man attending a memorial service. His face is always this rigid. His mouth stays tight, and the expression barely changes. He does not look panicked on camera, but he looks like everyone owes him 3 million won, or he's attending someone's funeral. In diplomatic settings, he stands correctly, appears fully under control, and behaves exactly as a senior official should. But again, his expression suggests that he's a dead man, beaten down by the massive workload. At max, I can give him a 3 for his lack of camera charisma. For his vibe, I would give a score of 7. Comrade Pak is not a glamorous figure, and certainly is not energetic. But he looks like he is genuinely worried about North Korea's future. It makes him look loyal, trustworthy, and respected. In photos, he comes off like the reliable senior cadre you send to inspect a food factory, whisper something serious to the leader, and return home having aged another 3 years for the nation. He is not sexy in any conventional sense, but he has the aura of a dependable big party cadre. Pak Pong Ju finishes with a total of 27 out of 50, making him a respected but unromantic entry in this contest. He is not a dazzling comrade, not a camera-loving peacock, and certainly not a man cared about his hairstyle. Instead, his appeal lies in the sober dignity of a lifelong economic workhorse who somehow survived decades of failure, factional politics, and the general North Korean habit of punishing the nearest available official. He had a reasonably handsome face, lean and intelligent, but everything else about him remained firmly average at best. So, let's put him in the D tier. Next, we have Pak Thae-song, the current North Korean premier, and arguably the country's number 2. He rose through the Workers' Party apparatus, especially the Organization and Guidance Department, and became a close aide to Kim Jong-un. After 2012, he was promoted again and again, straight up to the party Politburo in January 2021. Then, Pak was elevated to the premier in December 2024 and was re-elected at the first session of the 15th Supreme People's Assembly in March 2026. Over the years, he built a reputation as a trusted manager, which is a polite way of saying he is the kind of man the regime sends in when it wants workers to stop being lazy. Visually, Pak Thae-song is a bit more interesting than his predecessors. He looks incredibly young on camera. Born in 1955, Pak is turning 71, but the man surprisingly has no wrinkles. He is not young in a boyish way, but his face looks like that of a well-off South Korean oppa who spends a lot on his daily skincare. In the public images, his skin looks tight, smooth and firm, with much less sagging or softness than other party cadres. The face is broad and a little fleshy, but it still looks compact and intact rather than worn down. He probably has a very low sun exposure, as he dedicated his entire life into indoors evaluations of other people's mistakes. His cheeks look ideal for that classical Korean handsomeness, so for his face, I will give him an 8. His hairstyle is decent as well. With all his hair pulled back, he looks tidy and disciplined. Sure, his hair is not very thick, but we shouldn't be this critical of a 70-year-old grandpa. The hairstyle successfully gives his head a clean outline and makes him look more put together than he otherwise might. Not iconic, but competent. This is haircut by party order done correctly, 6 out of 10. Outfit, again, I will give a score of 5. A dark tailored suit plus a dark tie. Sometimes a dark coat plus a dark hat. Boring. For his camera charisma, he is much more capable than Pak Pong Ju. In public photos, he looks like he understands the assignment. Upright posture, controlled expression, no visible panic, and absolutely no accidental humanity. During inspections, he occupies the frame like a proper senior official, rather than fading into the entourage. His face stays fairly rigid. He does not smile much, and the mouth often settles into that familiar North Korean elite setting of deeply dissatisfied but professionally restrained. Still, unlike some of the more funereal-faced comrades, Pak Thae-song does not look defeated by the lens. Let's give him a 6. Finally, Pak has a taskmaster vibe. He has the face of a man who has already heard your excuses and rejected them on procedural grounds. Under his watch, everyone feels that they are obliged to fulfill their production quotas, and there is no other way around. He is not glamorous, but certainly imposing. In contrast to Pak Pong Ju, who looks worried about the future, Pak Thae-song looks like the man assigned to discipline the future. That makes him more formidable, more coherent as a public image, and strangely more attractive within this very cursed contest. A 7 for his vibe. Pak Thae-song ends with a total of 32 out of 50, which makes him one of the stronger early contenders in this deeply unnecessary beauty contest. He is not the kind of handsome comrade who wins hearts through warmth, charm, or a rich inner soul. He looks youthful, polished, and unusually well preserved for a man who has spent decades climbing one of the most joyless bureaucracies on earth. Everything about Pak Thae-song fits together. The broad, well-kept face, the careful grooming, and the upright camera presence. In this way, he is a handsome comrade. B tier.
North Korea is making room for a second-in-command, with one of Kim Jong-un's closest aides likely to get it. According to sources familiar with the North, Yong-won is expected to be named First Party Secretary. The role was created at the Workers' Party Congress early this year. After being promoted in January, Jo is one of the 5 members on the Politburo.
Next, another glasses-wearing comrade, Yong-won. Comrade Jo shares a very similar career with Comrade Pak Thae-song. Born in 1957, he also rose through the organization and guidance department and eventually became a vice director of it. He joined the Politburo since the 8th Workers' Party Central Committee in January 2021. In March 2026, he was elevated again, taking over as chairman of the Supreme People's Assembly and first vice president of the decision-making State Affairs Commission. With everything said, he is currently one of the top 10 most powerful people of the kingdom. Visually, Jo does not have a strong aura. Looking across more of his public images, he is slim, narrow, and faintly fragile looking. With the glasses on, he often resembles the kind of school prefect who reported everyone else to the teacher and then still got shoved into a locker. He does not have the broad, polished face of Pak Thae-song, nor the burdened, old cadre dignity of Pak Pong Ju. Instead, he has a thin, somewhat pinched look. His political importance is obvious, but his physical appeal, less so. Jo's face is just not doing much for him. The cheeks are drawn, the mouth is small, and a pair of glasses magnifies his tiny eyes. He is not charismatic by his outlook. Standing there, Comrade Jo looks like a man who has come to inform you that your self-criticism was insufficient. There is intelligence there, yes. I mean, he must be good at math. But it does not help with his physical charm. I will give him a 3 out of 10. Then, his hairstyle is like a bad joke. It is catastrophically weak. Seeing through an above angle, he is practically half bald. I don't discriminate against bald men. My uncle is bald as well. But his remaining is miserably thin, flat, and has almost no authority. He must be very smart, using too much brain energy to handle those difficult organizational tasks. But sorry, I can only give his hairstyle a 2. Outfit, 5. Dark suit, dark tie, well-tailored, correct fit. Pass. As Kim Jong-un's right-hand man, Yong-won appears on camera frequently. On his own visual merits, he is stiff, guarded, and oddly uncomfortable looking, playing the yes man on Kim's side. He never looks like a commander, but more like a carefully obedient secretary of our supreme leader. He does belong in the room, but he cannot dominate it. I mean, it's not entirely his fault. Everyone looks weak and mild next to the super obese middle-aged marshal. For the best, I can give him a 3. Yong-won does have a peculiar vibe of a computer nerd. If someday it reveals that he's the head of the North Korean hacker group Lazarus, I won't be surprised. He feels more like a function than a personality. Slim build, glasses, narrow face, tight expression. Altogether, he gives off the vibe of a loyal internal monitor, not a powerful political figure. So sorry, 2 out of 10. That puts Yong-won at the rock bottom of our contest, which is fair to me. He is extremely powerful, obviously close to the center of the system, and probably much more dangerous than he looks. But sorry, this is not a power ranking. This is a beauty tribunal. And in visual terms, Comrade Jo is simply too thin, too stiff, too bespectacled, and too spiritually administrative to compete with other stronger faces. What else can I say? F tier, and F for failure. For the next one, we have a military man. Pyong Chol, born in 1948, came up through the Korean People's Army. He served as head of the Pyongyang Air Command and later became Air Force Commander. He was put in charge of weapons and munitions in 2014, and from there he turned into one of Kim Jong-un's key defense industry lieutenants, with close ties to missile research and development. He was promoted all the way to Marshal in 2020, later demoted, then returned to prominence, and was eventually sidelined during the 2026 Party Congress reshuffle. So yes, he is important. But unfortunately, this is not an army man ranking. Looking at his photo set, Ri does not come across as sharp, elegant, or particularly photogenic. Honestly, he looks very not smart. He has a broad, heavy face with soft flesh, a pair of tired-looking eyes, and the kind of expression making him an average Korean grandpa instead of a military man. His face is not offensive, and there is a general softness to his whole visual package. The cheeks are too full, the jawline is loose, and those make him vaguely resemble a pug dog. Though he has a pair of monolid eyes, his ears are big and stand out. 4 is the best score that I can give. And his hairstyle is another disaster. His hair is thin and sparse. I bet the barber can only do damage control rather than any styling. In some photos, it looks flattened against the scalp. In others, it looks like being blown in the wind. The only good news is that, as a military man, he often wears his military hat, which rescues his image a little bit. So, let's give it a 3. For the outfit, come on, you know it. The non-Kim outfit is basically the same. Politically correct dark suits and dark ties. Well, Ri wears army attire often, but that is very ugly as well. 5. Moreover, he looks very bad on camera. He appears in the frame, but he rarely takes control of it. His expression is usually stiff, subdued, and slightly blank, as if he has been told to stand there while someone else does the exciting part. He does not look warm or even lively. In many photos, he seems like a senior technical uncle waiting for the briefing to end so he can go back home and focus on his hobbies. He must be good at something, perhaps fishing or gardening, definitely not photography. Besides, he often appears next to the supreme leader, which belittles him. Overall, 3 is a fair score for him. Finally, I will give his vibe a 4 out of 10. He has certainly never been handsome, but we shall agree that General Ri still has some residual authority because of all those medals he wears, and the sheer fact that he has spent decades standing around missiles without being vaporized politically. There is still some trace of military gravitas in him. The problem is that it does not really come from his face, body language, or natural aura. Strip away the medals, and what remains is less formidable marshal than retired grandpa invited back to inspect a drone factory. He does not project danger, command, or even smartness. But look at his greasy face, he must be pretty rich. So in total, Ri Pyong Chol gets 19 out of 50. That places him firmly in the lowest rank of this beauty contest. He is not offensively ugly, and he does have some leftover military prestige, but physically, he is far too soft and visually unremarkable to compete with other candidates. In another ranking, say, one about getting promotions or surviving court politics, General Ri would do much better. But here, in the brutal world of face, hair, camera presence, and vibe, he ends up looking less like the handsome guardian of the Republic and more like a weary neighborhood uncle who wandered into a strategic weapons briefing by mistake. Again, F for failure.
Kim Jong-il's birthplace in the Pak Thae-song secret camp is in Samjeon County, Ryanggang Province of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. It is a historic place where the great leader Kim Jong-il was born and spent his childhood. A monument inscribed with a poem titled Bright Star is standing before the native home. The poem was written by great President Kim Il-sung in praise of respected Kim Jong-il.
Comrades, now the internal contest within the Pak Thae-song lineage begins. Our first contestant is the real OG, the Manchurian guerrilla hero, the founder of the Democratic People's Republic, the winner of the Korean War, the great leader, the self-declared inventor of the Juche idea, the man who outlived Joseph Stalin and Mao Zedong, the factory inspection enthusiast, our eternal president, Kim Il-sung. Unlike the previous contestants, Kim Il-sung is not merely a state official who happened to be photographed a lot. He is the original North Korean visual project, the North Korean personality cult prototype. Kim Il-sung had what very few authoritarian founders truly possess: natural visual talent. He had the broad face of a national grandfather, the the smile of a benevolent leader of history, and the kind of stage-managed warmth that made even tyranny look very humanistic. When North Korean propaganda called him the father of the nation, it was not only brainwashing ideology, but also image branding. He looked exactly like what the regime needed him to look like: strong but approachable, mature but vigorous. He had that liberator of the nation vibe. And for fairness, we are obviously judging prime Kim Il-sung, not late-stage elderly Kim, after decades of overfeeding, and who had a basketball-sized tumor on the back of the head. Prime Kim means the glorious middle decades, the mature leader of the 1960s till the early 1980s. Let us be honest, if born in the South, Grandpa Kim may become a film star. Kim Il-sung had one of the most effective political faces of the 20th century. Broad forehead, balanced features, strong cheeks, commanding yet friendly eyes, and above all, that familiar smile. It is not only that he looked handsome, he had a face with peasant warmth and imperial confidence at the same time. He looked both like the kindly patriarch who would ask about your family, and the man whose portrait would continue overseeing your family long after death. He was not slim in the modern bureaucratic sense. The cheeks gave him vitality, the facial structure gave him authority. The eyes had enough softness to induce affection, and enough firmness to signal that you should give up your anti-party thoughts as soon as possible. It was the ideal revolutionary patriarch face. A smile like a spring harvest, and a jawline like power consolidation. In short, Kim Il-sung sets the standard of handsomeness and deserves a 10 out of 10, no doubts. Now, about his eternal hairstyle. Kim Il-sung's hair was not flamboyant, like his son's later bouffant experiment in personal branding. It did not need to be. His hair worked because it was stable, thick, controlled, and matched the face perfectly. In his prime, the line was neat, the density was respectable, and the shape helped create that unmistakable silhouette of the mature revolutionary father. It had volume without vanity, authority without insecurity. This is important. Dictator hair can go wrong very easily. Too flat and the man looks tired. Too theatrical and the man looks insane. Kim Il-sung found the golden mean. His hair was steadily disciplined and old-school handsome. It framed the face like an official architecture. Using one word to describe Kim Il-sung's hair, it must be foundational. 9 out of 10. Unlike the ordinary comrades trapped forever in dark suits, Kim Il-sung quietly had the authority in men's fashion. Yes, our great leader loved Western suits, and it was he who started to trend and turned Western official attire into the North Korean costume of seriousness and leadership. In portraits and public photos, he looks like a gentleman who got educated in Britain. The fit is sharp, the silhouette is commanding, and the overall effect is remarkably modern for a man busy founding a socialist monarchy. He understood a crucial truth. If one is going to become the eternal president, one should dress like the mafia boss of Korean history. The suits make him look dignified, worldly, and strangely elegant. This is not flamboyant fashion, but a regime-building drip. I will give him a 9. Next, the great leader receives a 10 for his camera charisma. He was a monster on camera. He understood the importance of smiling and posture. He knew how to stand in a crowd and remain the absolute center of everything. In official photographs, he rarely looks cramped, awkward, or caught off guard. He looks inevitable. There is warmth in every one of his photos. Many dictators can project fear. Far fewer can project paternal intimacy. When he stood with children, old men, soldiers, peasants, or foreign guests, the camera always found the same thing: a man who took the entirety of the country's destiny on his shoulders. Even decades later, the image still works. You see a prime Kim Il-sung photo, and you immediately understand why the cult succeeded visually. The man had state television charisma before state television ever existed. Lastly, this is where the eternal president becomes almost impossible to beat. Kim Il-sung's vibe is total. Founding father aura, guerrilla hero myth, national grandpa image. He was literally the benevolent son of the nation. In historical archives, he looks like the country has been instructed to orbit around him. He has the rare kind of authoritarian attractiveness that combines familiarity with transcendence. He seems close enough to shake your hand, but elevated enough that your grandchildren will still be thanking him. He could look soft without seeming weak, and cheerful without seeming unserious. That balance is extraordinarily hard to pull off. The face, the smile, the posture, the clothes, the myths, the camera language. All of it fits together with terrifying perfection. The great leader is the aesthetic source code of the Kim regime. With all due respect, 10 for his vibes. It gives him an overall total of 48 out of 50. He had a broad face, legendary smiles, devastating camera charisma, and a vibe so overpowering it had to be preserved in bronze. S tier. Now, the internal contest within the Paektusan lineage continues. Our next contestant is the dear leader, the hereditary prince of Pyongyang, the patron saint of cinema kidnapping, the J-pop lover, the architect of military-first politics, the polygamist, the man who turned battlesuits, platform shoes, and bouffant hair into national symbols, the eternal General Secretary of the Korean Workers' Party, Kim Jong-il. Is there anything else I should describe about him? Our dear leader was born to inherit the throne. Unlike his great daddy, whose visual brand was basically perfected by history itself, Kim Jong-il is a story of rise and decline. It's not about his political life, but his face. In his younger years, Kim Jong-il was a pretty man. Not majestic like his father, but genuinely good-looking in a softer, more delicate way. The younger Kim had cleaner lines, better symmetry, a slimmer frame, and that slightly pale, sheltered, elite son face that in another timeline might have become an internet celebrity or an Instagram influencer. Then privilege and overindulgence took their revenge. By the time the world really got used to Kim Jong-il's image, the youthful prettiness had curdled into a puffier face and a beer belly, let alone the sudden weight loss after his deadly 2008 stroke. Our dear leader did not age into elegance. Still, for fairness, we judge prime Kim Jong-il, not the final overstuffed version. Prime Kim means the younger successor period, the 1970s through the 1990s, when he still had that smooth face, carefully arranged hair, and the odd, delicate prettiness as the Prince of Pyongyang. Let's give his face a 10. Kim Jong-il's face is not rugged, not broad, and does not resemble the peasant hero Kim Il-sung. He had a different category of appeal: pale, neat, aristocratic, almost fragile. The features sit well together. The nose is tidy, the eyes are clear and somewhat soft, and the overall structure has a polished, sheltered quality. He looks like the spoiled son of power, which, tragically, he was. The late-stage face was far worse, of course, but we should only look on the bright side. Then, using one word to describe the dear leader's hair, and that must be iconic. Some Western commentators say his hairstyle is eccentric and absurd, but I beg to differ. Kim Jong-il's hairdo is one of his trademarks. You could remove his medals, his titles, half his ideology, maybe even the country's electrical supply, and he would still be recognizable by the hairstyle alone. That is not just hair, that is state building. You feel ridiculous? You're right. But once a hairstyle becomes globally parodic and still remains politically untouchable, one has to respect the achievement. Needless to say, 10 out of 10. For the outfit, boy, we have a whole episode on the dear leader's sartorial genius. The battle suits, the parkas, the platform shoes, the ladies' glasses. Taken individually, many of these choices are terrible. Put together, they become a complete and unmistakable Juche core wardrobe. Think about it. The eternal president had already set the fashion standard absurdly high. It would be impossible to beat Kim Il-sung in the area of elegant tailoring and Western suits. Then, miraculously, our dear leader created his signature multi-purpose battlesuit. What a marvelous, personalized costume. In a country where everyone wears a modest black suit, Kim Jong-il is the only shining star. 10 out of 10. Further, our dear leader has a weird cinematic magnetic power. He rarely spoke in public, but he did appear on camera. He never tried to project that fatherly warmth like his father did, but adopted a completely different strategy. He leaned into mystery, distance, and strangeness. He was short, increasingly puffy in later years, and by any normal standard, not a healthy-looking old man at all. Physically, he was terrible, bloated for years, suddenly diminished after the stroke, hidden behind giant sunglasses and the expression of a man who had not slept properly since the collapse of the Soviet Union. And yet, somehow, the camera still revolved around him. That is the strange genius of Kim Jong-il. He dominated the room because he looked so unmistakably like Kim Jong-il. The bouffant, the little elevated shoes, the odd posture, the permanent air of royal fatigue. Everything fused into one bizarre but complete package under the camera. So, despite his short stature and later ugliness, I still have to give him an 8 out of 10 for camera charisma. Finally, for vibe, Kim Jong-il deserves a 9 out of 10. His vibe was both extraordinary and contradictory. On the one hand, he had the aura of a playboy prince, women and wives, the luxury habits, the French wine, the fondness for cinema, music, foreign gadgets, and the general lifestyle of a spoiled monarch who believed the world existed only for his amusement. On the other hand, this same eccentric prince presided over famine, ruin, political terror, and military-first austerity. That contrast gives him a uniquely dark aura. He is flamboyant while the country starves. Kim Il-sung felt like the smiling father of the nation. Kim Jong-il feels like the decadent heir who inherited the palace, kept the soundtrack, and let the servants die in the basement. Morally monstrous, aesthetically unforgettable. So I think 9 is a fair score. So the dear leader comes out to a total of 47 out of 50. That puts him at equal with Kim Il-sung, as he should be. The father and the son may represent two very different schools of North Korean masculinity, but both reach the absolute summit of visual dictatorship. One built the regime through charisma and paternal myth. The other inherited it, dressed it in sunglasses and platform shoes, and somehow made the whole theatre even more unforgettable. Of course, their appeal is not the same. Kim Il-sung is handsome in a classical way. Kim Jong-il is handsome in a deeply cursed, late feudal, auteur dictator way. S tier. And now, comrades, at long last, we arrive at the final boss, the end product of 3 generations of visual engineering, the polished jewel of Mount Paektu's bloodline management, the supreme leader, the middle-aged marshal, the rocket inspection prodigy, the patron of real fur coats and luxury yachts, the man who inherited a famine state and rebranded it with water parks, apartment towers, and a much sharper haircut, Kim Jong-un. Unlike his predecessors, Kim Jong-un entered history as the fully upgraded version. He did not need to invent the cult, as he was born as a part of it. From the moment he emerged as successor in 2010 and formally took power in 2012, everything about his public presentation has been aggressively deliberate. The haircut, the weight growth, the smile, the leather jackets, the white horse, and the missile poses. None of it is accidental. And unlike others who had a prime, Kim Jong-un has no prime because all his life he's been priming. The man came out of the box already in final form. Other leaders age into their image. Kim Jong-un descended to earth as his own remastered edition. So let us stop pretending modesty. The scoring system is about to collapse under the weight of His Majesty's body. Kim Jong-un's face is round, smooth, deliberate, and unmistakable. It has the broadness of Kim Il-sung, but with a younger, more aggressively curated finish. The cheeks are full, the skin is smooth and clear. The expression can switch, almost magically, from jovial schoolboy to disappointed emperor in half a second. His face has the rare quality of being both cartoonishly recognizable and politically functional. One glance and you know exactly who he is. That is his brand supremacy. He has the sort of face that would look absurd on an ordinary man, but on him becomes sovereign. The rounded features give him warmth, the heavy brows give him command. The eyes, when narrowed, can make even a ribbon-cutting ceremony feel like an ideological purge. And then there is the smile, broad, practiced, confident, and ever so slightly smug. Kim Il-sung had a fatherly face. Kim Jong-il had a delicate, aristocratic face. Kim Jong-un has the postmodern autocrat face, bigger, bolder, cleaner, and designed for the age of 4K cameras. 11 out of 10. Kim Jong-un's hair is not hair. This is geopolitics. It is one of the great visual achievements of modern authoritarianism. The sides are shaved down into near submission. The top rises and sits with Juche confidence. The outline is so sharp, so mathematically committed to itself, that it turns his head into a state symbol. You could black out the face entirely and still recognize the man from the silhouette alone. That is not grooming. That is strategic deterrence through barbering. Some call it ridiculous, but history does not remember modesty. And Kim Jong-un understood what his father understood before him. If you are going to rule an isolated nuclear monarchy, you might as well have a haircut that looks like an A-bomb. 11 out of 10. And for the outfit, 11 out of 10. The old rules are dead. This is a millennial Kim. His wardrobe is a masterclass in elite authoritarian versatility. Mao suits, leather jackets, black overcoats, cream-colored field wear, military tailoring, civilian tailoring, the occasional immaculate white shirt. Every look is calibrated to tell a different story while always keeping the same message intact. This man is the center of the universe, and the People's Republic has been color-matched to him. The supreme leader can look like a field marshal, a luxury gangster, a young CEO, or the manager of a missile-themed beach resort, often within the same month. The whole package says not just leader, but lead character. Even when he is dressed simply, he looks expensive. That is the essence of true style authority. Camera charisma? 11 out of 10. Kim Jong-un was made for the lens. He understands angles, entrances, pauses, and timing in a way that no one else truly mastered. He knows when to smile, when to frown, when to stare into the distance like a young Caesar evaluating his concrete leisure resort. The camera never catches him looking small. Even when he is physically shorter than his subordinates, the framing corrects reality instantly. He is also astonishingly flexible on camera. He can hang out with children, chat casually with generals, and play the statesman with foreign leaders. That is supreme camera literacy. Kim Il-sung had warmth. Kim Jong-il had a mystery. Kim Jong-un has control. The camera always obeys him. And finally, the most important category of all, vibe. Kim Jong-un's vibe is dominating. He is young and old at once. He is his grandfather's reincarnation and his father's revenge in a luxury lifestyle. He can look like a spoiled princeling, a beloved uncle, a nightclub owner, a mob boss, a comrade, a marshal, and the last surviving monarch of a post-apocalyptic world. That is because his vibe is not based on consistency in the ordinary sense. Whatever he does becomes the standard by which everything around him is judged. If he gains weight, it is prosperity. If he smokes, it means contemplation. If he wears a leather coat near a missile, it suggests coolness. He is not merely handsome, but handsome in the terrific way that only a third-generation hereditary ruler can be. Kim Jong-un is the ultimate product of the Paek-2 gene pool. So yes, he receives 11 out of 10 for vibe. And that gives Kim Jong-un a total of 55 out of 50, which is very fair. Kim Jong-un is the synthesis, the sequel, the deluxe edition, the supreme leader of style inflation. He is not merely the sexiest man in North Korea. He is, by the sacred science of this tribunal, the sexiest man on earth. We have to create a S+ tier solely for our supreme leader. The Onion only said it as a satire, but we, at last, confirm it as an unshakable fact. Comrades, let's have one last round of applause for the supreme leader, the most handsome guy in the entire human history.